I opened up the Japanese profile. Video is still good.
Well, we have the adapter back.
Hold on. I'll go back to the video quickly, make sure that the link go live. Oh no, I guess it's water.
Yep. Quarter inch.
Quarter inch to a length.
No, yeah. 1/8.
Okay.
I'm going to go for the box out. Or the main out. It should work.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2.
I have the link for the live stream.
Or you can just email it to me. I'm HA.
Check.
Hey, check.
Hey, check, check. Check 1, 2, hey. Hey, hey. Mike, check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. Check, check. Check. Check, check. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Well, I still haven't heard it. Get up on, get it up on your machine. Because mine is all confused with inputs and outputs. No, I just.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I was clipping like a son of a bitch. Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Hey. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Check 1, 2. Check 1 2 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2. Check, check, check. Check a like check, like check. Check 1, 2. 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 We're getting closer. I'd like to have check 1, 2. Oh, hang on. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Pumpkin rutabaga, pumpkin rutabaga.
Want. I can give you quarter inch. If you want to do quarter inch direct hand.
Yeah.
Might find a way.
Yeah.
And I believe to finish it because
that was the first.
Check. Hey, okay. Now we're talking. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, cool.
Now I can.
Yeah, just very basic.
That's why.
Yep. Okay, I won't touch that.
Here's the moderator.
That's right. I'm glad you said that because I didn't realize you were thinking about me. So I would have done something very bad.
And, you know, that's pretty much it.
Need to listen. So let's try.
So this is sort of more spot.
It's telling me that the bit rate is still too low. I don't want to do that. Okay.
Mic 4. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. I mean, I can still see myself in the video, so you still got a second.
And it keeps choking.
mean, it's what it is at this point.
It's fine, because, you know, there hasn't been much, you know, maybe I didn't get upset.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 2, testing 2, 3, 4, testing 2, 3, 4. Testing 3, testing 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. Testing. Testing number 4. 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Testing one, testing one. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, everybody. He literally told me that 2 minutes ago, and I completely forgot. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so happy to see all of you. I had no idea that we would run out of chairs, so I'm super happy. My name is Heather Perry. I'm the director of the Ashby Library, and I'd like to welcome you for our first candidates debate. We have our candidates, Andrew Shepard, Kathy Lundeen, and Margaret Escarcia, and our wonderful moderator, Charlie Jarnes, who is the president of the National Honor Society at North Middlesex, and he generously volunteered to moderate this debate tonight. So I'm so happy that he was willing to do that, and I appreciate all of you coming. So have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Heather. Hello, candidates. I'm looking forward to your spirited and fair debate tonight. We'll begin with opening statements. You will each have 3 minutes to give a statement, at the end of which you will stop and the next candidate will be. We'll go left to right, and we'll begin with Andrew Shepard.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. I'd just like to thank my fellow candidates, the organizers, the Ashby Public Library, and the attendees here tonight. Thank you guys for all coming out. I just give you a quick background on myself. Born and raised in Townsend. I'm really fortunate to be part of a family who's been working in this district for over 100 years. And that's as firefighters, as social workers, as farmers, as teachers, as business owners. And I'm happy to be running today, continuing that family commitment to our community. One thing that I think sets me apart as a candidate is having worked on Beacon Hill before. I've worked with former state representative Sheila Harrington. I worked in her Boston office, down on Groton, and that really gave me a chance to understand the nature of the job, the demands that it takes, and what does it take to solve constituent problems and issues locally. I was also fortunate to work with Governor Baker in his executive office of access and opportunity. I helped write an executive order on procurement. And in that role, I got to see the executive side. You know, what does it take to have an effective legislator? And I'm going to bring that experience with me. You know, I also own my own business, Bayberry Hill Water Company. It's a small 5-gallon water jug delivery service. We service about 300 customers throughout northern and central Mass. You know, through that, I know what it's like to have to make a payroll or struggling to pay, you know, $6.50 for diesel earlier this year. I work on our family farm. We raised about 1,000 turkeys, about 300 acres of hay. I'm going to bring that farmer's work ethic down to Beacon Hill. I also work in our family business. You know, I help project manage about 3,000 feet of municipal water line that we put in West Townsend. Another piece of my candidacy is that I'm a call firefighter locally. And I think what that brings is, you know, having seen people at their worst, whether it's mental health issues or medical emergencies or disasters, and I'm going to bring that sense of compassion with me when I go down to Beacon Hill and I'm making decisions. And you know, the experiences that I listed above, you know, these are the roots for where I'm basing my decisions when I go down to the Hill. So thank you all.
Great, thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Kathy Lundeen.
Hi, Kathy Lundeen. And I do understand that public is probably spoiling folks' litter. That's actually not what I'm here. I honestly get in this because at this point in elections, I feel as though the two-party system has failed us as citizens. So that's why I'm in. And here's my background. For 40 years, I've been an ICU nurse working in critical care, high-pressured units, making them flow, making decisions, prioritizing, making the unit flow for the good of the patient. And those things are necessary at Beacon Hill. I'm a problem solver and a critical thinker. I started off getting my diploma in nursing. I went on, had a family, got my BSN at Riviera. Then I tied up my education by going to Boston University for a master's in communication. I was appointed to the Governor's Board of Nursing, which made me every nurse's boss. So at that point, I policy, procedure, how the government works, how the government sometimes doesn't work. Then I also taught at Bunker Hill Community College as a clinical instructor. There I learned that teaching and children is a very difficult profession. Most recently, I'm the chair and principal of the safety complex. I've got a good team there. They're working cohesively and very well, and hopefully as of July 2023, we're going to break ground on that. I also started this little video program with my sister. We go around, we interview community leaders, the movers and shakers, to get the scoop on issues and bring it to the people. I'm retired right now from nursing. I raised my family, I've got grandchildren, but I do work for DM at Neshoba Hospital as a supervisor, which also takes problem solving, critical thinking, if not minute to minute, at least daily. So those things I would bring to Beacon Hill. I would work for you with drive and compassion. So I do think I'm qualified to be a representative, because basically I like to work and just get things done. Yes. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundeen. Margaret Scarsdale.
All right, how does this sound? You go a little louder, you can hear me in the back. All right. Good evening, everyone. It is wonderful to be here with you all tonight in this beautiful library. Thank you to Heather, the library staff, Charlie, and all of you for making this evening possible. My name is Margaret Scarsdale, and I am running to be your state representative because I've seen firsthand the challenges and opportunities small communities like ours face, and I rolled up my sleeves and delivered real results for the better part of the decade. This community deserves a dedicated, engaged, proven leader fighting on its behalf on Beacon Hill, and I have been that leader for many years. I fell in love with Ashby almost 30 years ago when my husband and I stopped in on our way to hike Watehic. There is an irreplaceable feeling in a small town like this, and my heart has been in Ashby ever since. We need a state representative who understands what makes communities like Ashby so special, its rural character, while also helping to chart a course for its future. And I've already been showing up for Ashby and our district and doing that work long before this campaign began. I fought alongside many of you to stop the Kinder Morgan pipeline. I fought for and secured grants for economic development for our seniors and veterans. And this year, as chair of the Pepperell Select Board, saved the North Middlesex School District over $500,000 by leading the charge for education funding. I've shown my commitment to our future by co-founding a regional municipal climate change group, funding our affordable housing trust, securing multiple grants and partnerships that benefit our community. As the only candidate to have served as an elected leader, I know what it takes to get the job done because I've gotten it done for us over and over. It's why the Massachusetts Teachers Association, Massachusetts Nurses Association, Professional Firefighters of Massachusetts, Sierra Club, dozens of select board members and school committee members, and every sitting representative and senator in this district have endorsed me because they understand my fierce commitment to this community and my passion and successful advocacy of it. I ask for your vote on or before November 8th so we can continue these collaborations and successes. And I'm looking forward to these questions and spending the evening with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. We will now move on to our question and answer portion of the debate. First, we'll start off with the long question portion. There will be 5 long questions, each with 3 minutes to answer, with the possibility of 2 extra questions at the end if time permits. And then after that, we'll move on to the quick question portion, where we'll ask 2 questions and you'll have a minute to answer. First, we'll begin with question 1. Question 1 is, NMRSD has suggested closing Ashby Elementary School. The town cannot afford the major repairs or rebuild that the district deems necessary. Having no school in the town and busing K to 4 kids is a poor choice for kids and the town. What do you see as the best option or solution for Ashby Elementary School, and why? We'll begin with Andrew Shepard.
So I just want to point out first and foremost that I don't think any parent wants to put a young child on a bus for possibly 45 minutes each way. You know, that just makes for a really long day. Fundamentally, the way that I see the job of the state representative is that I work for you. So whatever the town of Ashby decides, that is what I'm going to go forward and push for at the state level. That's how I'm going to spend my energy and do whatever I can in that capacity to deliver results at the state level, whether it's earmarks, lobbying, or legislating. You know, personally, I do think the town of Ashby needs its own elementary school. I also think there's several other needs that the town citizens can consider, such as the aging population in Ashby, and maybe considering a senior center or a mixed-use building. You know, once I get into office, I would say one of my first efforts to sit down with the Massachusetts School Building Authority and lobby for their support, even if it's less than what the town ideally would be looking for compensation. I think making sure we have their buy-in would be really important. I'd also reach out to my colleagues at the 160 other sitting reps and the 40 other senators to see who may have had a similar situation in their district and how they went about solving it. And there's also power in numbers. So if we can get a number of other reps that are in similar situations, give more amplification to our voice with the school building authority, or possibly a legislative solution to address the needs for this more rural area. Busing is really not ideal. I don't think anyone thinks it is the option. The cost of fuel, the state has historically just not lived up to its promise for funding school transportation. If that was what was pushed for, then I would push for more funding and make sure that the state is fully funding transportation. But primarily, I see it as my role to serve, and that means to the voters of our district, the people of Ashby, and also the kids and the elementary students in Ashby.
Right, thank you, Mr. Shepard. We'll move on to Kathy Lundeen.
So you definitely do need a new elementary school. Something needs to be done there. I just took a little ride by. And through my investigations, I did learn that there was a building committee being formed in Ashby to investigate and determine the need for a new elementary school. So I think you're on your way to kind of solving your own problem. So as a representative, that's what I would do. I would follow your lead as to what you want to do. If you want a new building, then we go to the building authority and we try and get more money. They only reimburse at 50% right now, so we do that. But right now, you seem to be on the road to what's going to work. And no one wants to bust a kid out of the territory, so keeping them in is the better form. But also, when it comes to school and busing and building a new school, there's another aspect to that, and it's called school choice. And the way public school is going, opting out of public schools and having a choice is very, very necessary. So another thing I would work for the schools is to have the money follow the child. Whether you want to go to a public, private school or religious school, the money needs to follow the child. So that's another whole issue as far as education. Education, you can have a great building, but if things don't work inside the school, you need the option to move the child out. But right now, you guys seem to be on the road to solving your own problem. And I'll be there for you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundeen. We will now move on to Margaret Scorsese.
For myself, I am thinking about the many conversations I have had with public officials and teachers and students and residents in Ashby. And one in particular comes to mind. I met her at the Office First Forum when they did a tour of the school and were talking to the public about the options. And that parent said, Ashby Elementary School is the heart of Ashby. So for the best option, I agree with the overwhelming number of people who are supporting keeping Ashby Elementary School. As a parent and former educator myself, it's really hard to imagine putting a child on the bus for 40 minutes one way to another school. And if you're thinking about a vibrant town, and building community, you want young people to come in, and when they learn that their child would have to be on a bus, their first grader, they're not as likely to move in. So it's very hard to convince them to buy if they don't have a school for their kids. Ultimately, it will be up to the voters. It is a costly move, no matter what you do. There are asbestos issues, there are structural issues, there are ADA compliant issues that have to be resolved. But if Ashby decides to move forward as a town, it is my job as a state rep to help secure funding. And I have a proven record of getting money for our towns, including this year. There are multiple streams with that. Earmarks, bond bills, and things like that. Also being a fierce advocate as a liaison with the Massachusetts School Building Authority so that Ashby has, fierce and powerful representation at the table, and being creative. Ashby has multiple municipal building needs, lack of no senior center. And so thinking about Ashby Elementary as being a partner to some of these or some other uses so that it functions for the whole community, whereas now it just serves students, it could serve a lot more constituents.
We will now move on to our second. Recently, there's a major fire at Ashby requiring from dozens of communities millions of gallons of water. Ashby had an active cease order against a property owner to prevent like this from happening again. And what we ensure contamination. Minutes to answer. We'll begin with Andrew Shepard.
Situation. Right, but that also doesn't give somebody the right to potentially pollute the regional water supply. But how to prevent this from happening and ensure the local water supply is free of contaminants. On the prevention side of things, I think I'd have to look at the zoning bylaws, which I'm not directly familiar with, and if there needs to be a change there. We would also be looking at the criminal statutes as well as the current master regs violations or how they're written in preparation. One of the biggest things I think we'd want to avoid is a situation where the owner walks away, there's a polluted site and abandoned property, and tax is not being collected by the town. The best approach would, in terms of a preventative nature, would bring all stakeholders in together to work with the DEP and see what solutions could be done on a local level. Now, in terms of ensuring the local water supply is free of contaminants, I think that would come down to testing. Myself, I'm not directly familiar with any of the aquifer maps to know which homes are more pertinent in regards to the site in terms of testing their wells, but I would encourage all owners tested, and the $6 billion a year. So back to the people, using some of that's left over to support testing, for homes that may not be able to afford it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shepard. Lundin.
So this problem seems to have needed to be dealt with. And as contaminated blackboard and stuff as to what's happened in the town. This man left to continue on until a dangerous situation developed. So I would just hope that if a situation like that came, state representative the T Pepperell is testing our water all the time. We're kept informed as to PFAS, manganese, anything. We're pretty much informed about the situation that our water is in. Massachusetts has all kinds of EPA laws. So I would also have not that I'm an expert on the situation that was, reviewing it.
Margaret Scarsdale.
What a situation. Thank you to all the firefighters who responded to this and for your tireless work. I've heard really some harrowing stories about that. Throughout this ordeal, I was in contact with the Ashby local officials, staying up to date on what was happening and what next steps were being planned. As for preventing this from happening again, really, it's multiple things, and it's going to take a coalition to be successful there. I am the only candidate who has built broad coalitions to help solve community problems, including 2 large coalitions that were to help address environmental hazards in our backyard. I know what it takes to bring people together, those voices, so you build a comprehensive solution and then work towards successful goals. That includes building between the local and the state level to successfully stop projects. I have also done. I will work with to figure out what other restrictions or guardrails we put into place to stop projects like this, and advocate for more resources for Mass DEP, which is woefully underfunded, so they can do their job and monitor sites like this. As water-free contamination, we know contaminants like People just have gone up in their water supply are happening all over the states, and communities are suffering from that. Our Constitution guarantees citizens the right to clean water. So as your state rep, I will make sure that all agencies that are tasked with making sure we have clean water are properly funded so they can do their job. And to look at what regulations with regard to contaminants maybe need to be put in place so PFAS is. And lastly, PFAS task force that was established this second legislature, the work will be going. They will have recommendations about how to address that, and I will be following the task force.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. We'll now move on to our third question. Residents are concerned with rising energy prices. Unitil is one of the most expensive energy suppliers in the country. What steps will you take to ensure that electricity increases this year are reasonable? What measures do you support to keep energy costs reasonable over the long term? We'll begin with Andrew Shepard.
So in my mind, in terms of what can a state rep do about ensuring electricity price increases are reasonable, there's a lot that goes into electricity pricing, and I think a lot of them are beyond the state representative's control. There's a lot of federal and international factors, but I do expect this to be a really hard winter, and I encourage anybody who's worried or is struggling to consider the LIHEAP program, which is Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And I'm happy to give you more information after the fact if you'd like some information about it. But I think there's a lot of promise in Massachusetts to having a more reliable and lower electricity rates in the future. There was a recent Supreme Court decision in Maine that reopened the possibility for bringing hydroelectric power from Maine down to Massachusetts, and that could help lower rates. I think we've also got a lot of wind being developed off the Cape as well as solar potential. Now, living in Townsend, I know how bad Unitil can be. There we go. And you look at the ice storm. We were out of power for weeks, some for days. It's unacceptable. And in addition to having just one of the most expensive electric providers in the country, it's just unacceptable. And one bill that gets me really excited, and I talk about a lot on the campaign trail, is this bill called the Municipal Choice Bill. And what it does is it creates a state process for towns to challenge their electric provider and create ultimately a municipal electric company. And so you can see, a town's an Ashby Electric Light Company or an Ashby Electric Light Company. Now, certainly the cost to this would be big. Municipal electric companies have the cheapest service rates above all competitors. Now, there hasn't been a new municipal electric company started since 1926. So I really want to go down and put new energy and voice behind this bill and push for it and try to get a new one formed, because I think it makes a lot of sense and people don't understand how challenging Unitil is in this district. But I also want to point out that bill specifically, whether the town decides to go through, it'd be a big cost to buy out the infrastructure that Unitil maintains, but it also creates a market threat. And whether the town decides to do it or not, hopefully it's enough of an incentive for Unitil to say, geez, there's a real chance that the town of Ashby is, pretty frustrated with us. They're going to pull out. Let's shape up and let's do better with our pricing and our service.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shepard. Kathy Lundeen.
So energy is expensive. Andrew's plan sounds good. Municipal companies now, energy is just what it is. The price is going to go up 64% over 8. Deregulated energy, but actually there is so much regulation on it. It's Unitil, but right now the rates are going to go up. And the state does have, as Andrew said, ways to pay for your fuel costs if you can't afford it. Energy, and let me just say this. We're in this situation because of our politicians and their green push for energy. We're not at the point where we're ready for green energy. We have to go slow, methodical, think this out. They've shut down our coal, they've shut down our oil. Hydropower sounds fine, but there's very little of that. They've shut down our nuclear. Our natural gas is being shipped overseas to Europe at 3 times the price that we pay. We are being caused unnecessary pain by our politicians. Now, if we go back, there might be a point where we'll have to go back to fossil fuel. That's the absolute only way this is going to work. Green energy is generated from fossil fuel, and if we don't have it, you're going to be faced with ungodly rates all the time. There has to be a give and take. We are not ready for green, and this is what we're getting. Winter pain is not okay, and it is one particular party that has shut us down. So if you want to be irate, like I'm irate, it's from our politicians who are forcing green energy on us, and we are not ready.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundy. Margaret Crosdale.
I volunteer at my senior center, so I know how traumatic these increases are going to be, and I have heard this concern about the spike in prices all across the district as I'm knocking on doors and talking to people. How to keep energy costs reasonable this year? Well, electricity rates are proposed by energy companies, and the rates for this year have already been approved by the Department of Public Utilities, so the rates are the rates. So I am encouraging people who need assistance programs like the income heating energy assistance program known as Light Heat. You can talk to your council on aging, senior center, go to your town hall. They can give you more information about that. Long term, at the state level, we need to explore tax relief for low-income and working-class families, and for me, everything is on the table for that. Constituent services so that residents are connected to what they need so that they can stay in their home and be safe, that will be a top priority. I support legislation of Senator Cronin and Rep. Kuchmarek, both of whom have endorsed me to establish the Municipal Lighting Authority. Towns like Groton have that, and they have seen a substantial reduction in their electricity rate. I will work to drive down utility costs by supporting efforts to change how the state secures or purchases its energy. I would propose more rigorous oversight over the process of proposing tax rates and their review. They need to be regulated better. And charge because companies have such strong lobbyists, and we need a strong leader who's ready to take up a tough fight like that. I have a history of standing up to giants and winning those battles. I am also ensuring that the Commonwealth continues to invest in renewable energy efforts so that we are not held hostage by fossil fuel companies by our global dependence. Massachusetts has the capability of getting 100% of its energy from green energy alone, and we need to make sure that we are making that transition for our children and for our grandchildren.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. We will now move on to our fourth question. The town of Ashby is in a precarious position going forward regarding financial sustainability. The difficulty and or unwillingness to draw business to town versus the desire to have modern services and taxpayers getting their money's worth are in direct conflict. What types of cost-saving measures and revenue generation would you suggest and help the town obtain and support on a state level to help Ashby survive? And Shepherd, we'll begin with you.
So I think that, that's a question that really, Ashby's facing and every town in this district is facing. How do you preserve the rural nature and increase and really it's ongoing conversations. It's working with local residents, it's working with local leaders, and just continuing to think critically. I think a big piece, I know a question that will come up, later in the docket is about affordable housing, making sure there is housing for people in the areas, people that can go to work, people that can pay taxes, that can support local business. It's really about thinking what does, in terms of Ashby specifically, what does Ashby offer? Very rural, a lot of forest, hiking, there's a lot of different options, and it's really an ongoing conversation in trying to lure businesses in and lure new industries. I was talking with somebody the other day, about the challenges with housing and the flight of people moving out of the city. And I think one thing, our area doesn't use particularly often is kind of short-term rentals. And there could be an option to, increase some of the tax base, like taxing short-term rentals, encouraging people to come out and enjoy the more rural atmosphere that we offer here in the First Middlesex District.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Kathy Lundin.
So this is a choice for Ashby people to make, is what I find. Do you want your town to be rural, or do you want development to come in? If you want your town to remain rural, you have to look to your property taxes. And Ashby is building $500,000, $700,000 homes, which will bring in some revenue. Now, if you want to develop, there's ways to develop too, but it's really up to you what you want. And once you decide, as a state representative, whichever one of us gets elected, will be there to help you. But until Ashby says we want to totally be rural, we don't want development, we don't want business, we want to maintain our ruralness, we want to go in the rivers and climb mountains or whatever, then that's what you live with. But then you'll have to decide on how you're going to bring in really your town. Until you think you have to, that's.
Thank you, Ms. Lundin. Margaret Scarsdale.
I love working on economic development, and I am the only candidate who has done so. I ran a downtown revitalization program in Air, Massachusetts, starting in 2007. And if you drove through Air in 2007 and you were to drive through Air today, you can see that transformation. And that's an example of economic development that enhanced a community's character. As a small business owner myself, I know that when a small business closes, it really has an impact on other businesses. So we want to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep businesses vital. I face this as chair of the Pepperell Select Board. We're trying to revitalize our downtown corridor, which looks like it did in the 1970s. And it's one of the reasons that I wrote 3 competitive grants to get that jump started last year. We were lucky to get all 3 of those. As a measure for Ashby, I think of one word, and that is balance. You have to decide for yourself how much growth versus, the rural character, but many towns do this, and you can do that successfully. I would say a good place to start is thinking about whether it's time for a comprehensive update of your planning documents, because these planning documents, as boring as that sounds, everything fits together, right? Economic development, education, the environment, your schools. So you want to make sure that wherever you're going, you know how to get there because you know where you're starting from. And those planning documents help you be successful when you're applying for competitive grants for the state. They want to see that you've done your homework. Another measure to try to get this balance is to look at regionalization opportunities as a way to save money. We did that with our dispatch center, our 911 dispatch center. That has worked amazingly. We could perhaps combine our IT services or our person, our veteran services, So that leaves you more money on the table to decide whether you're investing it in a businesses or set more land aside by purchasing it so that you're securing that rural character. I do know what it takes to get the job done with economic development, and I look forward to partnering with Ashby to solve that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. We will now move on to our fifth question. What measures would you support to increase the supply of affordable housing in Ashby without increasing the burden on local services? We'll begin with Andrew Shepard.
You know, I think this is a balance, like everything in state and local government. I certainly believe and think that we need affordable housing, and I was pleased to see the state revise their MBTA communities designation, where originally they asked the town of Ashby to increase their housing by about 60 to 70%. Size fits all approach, and they're not considering district in our more rural approach, in our more rural environment. You know, currently they dropped it from, I think it was about 700 houses. They were originally asking the town of Ashby to zone for down to 62. So I think that's a bit more reasonable in terms of zoning requirements. I would support efforts to zone for new developments. Housing is important, and I'm going to partner with the local officials and with our community to solve the problem and go forward and make the area better.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Kathy Lundeen.
If Ashby doesn't want affordable housing, it feels as though you can't afford to do the services, I don't think you really have to go into affordable housing. Only 35 communities in Massachusetts out of 350 have bought into the affordable housing plan that the state has. So I feel as though you don't have the services to do affordable housing. You actually do not have to do it. So again, it's your choice. If you want to do affordable housing, and a state rep will help you, I'll help you get there any way you want. But you actually don't have to if it's going to be too much of a burden for Ashby. You decide.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundeen. Margaret Scarsdale.
Realistically, every house is going to increase services, even if just a little. You've got water, you've got road repair, you've got public safety, you've got your schools. So measures I would support to reduce this impact to Ashby would be to follow best practices of clustering affordable houses so that it minimizes the impact, on those services. It minimizes the impact on the environment. Ashby could identify town-owned property that they could use for affordable housing. If you already own it, you don't have to purchase it. That could be a pathway. And I was happy to see the State House rework their MBTA guidelines. That kind of tone-deaf approach that has been taken in many, including transportation, that leaves small towns it's like we're supposed to be on par with big cities, and we aren't, and small towns get penalized for that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. Time is permitting, so we will move on to two questions that were submitted today, both on water infrastructure. Given the realities of what we are facing, the water infrastructure of the Commonwealth, and question for this is, where do you as a candidate stand on the current state funding of water systems? Are you aware of the water infrastructure finance report of 2012? What, if anything, would you change? And do you think it adequately provides for things like lead service line replacement or PFAS treatment? We will begin with Andrew Shepard.
So, specifically about PFAS, this is a big problem throughout the state. And myself owning a water jug company, a lot of the customers that come to me, looking for 5-gallon delivery are coming because source, whether it's the municipal water source or their own private well, and that's a I think we look at in dollars. I think we've got to put some of that money towards improving our infrastructure, and that's really roads, water, the basics. That's where I think that those resources need to go. So that's my answer.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Kathy Lundeen.
So I've kind of already answered that question. There are already a lot of state regulations, state oversight as far as PFAS and contaminants go. Sometimes there's actually too much regulation, and the levels that the state puts down is almost unlivable or not quite appropriate. So as far as water contamination, I think we're actually sometimes overregulated, and there's enough oversight. I'm just using Keppel as an example. We're testing our water all the time. So I think, that's, yeah.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundeen. Margaret Scarsdale.
PFAS is a forever chemical, and it is tested in the parts per trillion. It is so dangerous to human health. We have towns like Air who just spent $10 million on a remediation system for their PFAS. Groton High School was using bottled water last year because of spike in PFAS. Pepperell had a well offline. Townsend had a well offline. PFAS is all over the country, and it's because PFAS is in so many things. It's on the griddle that you make your pancakes on. It's on your slicker for your boots. That's why the rain, bubbles off. So we have to deal with this problem. Do I think that the state is adequately funding this? Absolutely not. We do have to find a way to address that and help towns. And that is going to be a big issue for us to work on going forward.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. We will now move on to our final long answer question. It also has to do with water infrastructure, and it is, where do you stand on a statewide drought response bill? Do you believe a one-shoe-fit-all approach is, in your opinion, fit for a statewide requirement? And is taking out of the equation the certified operator's ability to run their system to the best interest of the health of the water system makes sense? We'll begin with Andrew Shepherd. Yes. Does taking out of the equation the certified operator's ability to run their system to the best interest of the health of the water system make sense?
So, I'd like to digest this question a little bit more, but I think, one size fits all. I talked about the MBTA housing designation from the state where they asked Ashby to increase their housing by like 60%. One size fits all does not work in the Commonwealth of Mass, and that's part of the problem that we have down on Beacon Hill. They're just making these blanket policies and they're applying it to inside 495, and it just doesn't always work for the other part of the state, particularly the certified operator. Running my own business, you got to delegate and you got to put people in charge and know what they're doing. I don't know. I'm a little unsure about the nature of the question, but I want to make sure the water operator for the town water system, is competent and can do the job they need to do to make sure there's safe water being delivered to the residents.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shepherd. Kathy Lundeen.
No, a blanket policy for anything does not work. So I'm not in favor of a blanket policy. Each town is different, and each town should be able to, with guidance, do this themselves. Now, I think, do you mean regulator like the town or a state official come in and oversee it? I'm confused to him as the meaning of that last part of the question.
I believe it means a town official. Yes.
So yeah, it should be a professional town official monitoring and taking care of the town's water. It should not be a blanket state regulation. There is too much state regulation, and the state cannot fund everything. This needs to be funded, that needs to be funded. Those pie in the sky dreams. Margaret is not going to be able to fund everything. So as far as I'll take care of this with funding, I'll take care of that with funding, that is not going to work. We do have billions of dollars in surplus. Water is important, but there's also much more other things, more difficult issues that need to be dealt with the money. So no to a blanket state thing, yes to the town taking care of their own water supply, and not everything can be funded.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundin. Finally, Margaret Scarsdale.
It was an honor to serve on the Pepperell Select Board and make sure that the town had all of its needs met through careful examination of requests and figuring out how we were going to get that job done. You know, it takes courage and it takes commitment and it takes perseverance to figure those things out, and I was honored to be able to do that. This bill that Charlie asked about is about maintaining adequate water supplies through effective drought management. We don't have to look too far. Damage to our water shortages, so we need to make sure that we're planning for that and doing our best to mitigate the impact of that. This bill also sets up a drought management task force of people who are experts in the field to offer recommendations and pathway forward so that we can handle this. You know, all communities were under an order where you couldn't water your lawn, and I think we need to try to move away from that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. That ends our long question portion of the debate. We will now move on to our quick question portion of the debate. I will ask you 2 questions, and you will each have a minute to answer. The first question is will you accept the results of this election, even if you lose? We'll begin with Andrew Shepard.
Thank you, Charlie. The answer to that question is yes. I will share, just for fun, the night of the primary, I had 2 speeches in my pocket. I had a concession speech and I had a victory speech. So depending on the results of the night will dictate which one I read in November.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Kathy Lundin.
No, I don't think I'll accept it. No, I will.
All right.
I'm just going to go on with my life. My husband has trips planned, and I'm either going to go to the state or I'm going to go on a trip.
All right, thank you. And finally, Margaret Scarsdale.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And our second question is, what is your position on the Dobbs decision? And do you see yourself supporting any changes in Massachusetts law on issues of reproductive choice? Andrew Shepard.
So the Dobbs decision was when the Supreme Court turned the decision on the abortion back to the states. I don't want anybody to have to need an abortion. I do believe that it is a decision best between a woman, her doctor, and her family. Where I differ on the issue and agree with the governor and is in terms of the Roe Act that passed in 2020. I would have voted against it. I'm not comfortable with abortions about the age without from 18 to 16.
Thank you, Mr. Shepard. Kathy Lundin.
Yes, I agree with it. Abortion is not a right guaranteed to anyone, so that should have been tossed back to the states. And it's up to the states how they want to regulate abortions. This is an issue that we have dealt with for years, so it's not going away. So as a state representative, if something came before me, I would have to weigh both sides, but I could not see saying no to ending a procedure because we have lived with it and women do expect it. So we have to make it workable. It can't be late-term abortions. It can't be, near birth abortions. That's just sad. So as a representative, I would work to try and satisfy most citizens. Saying absolutely no, I would not do. As much as I'm against it for myself or as a nurse, I could not partake in the procedure. But for the state and the citizens, a compromise and try and make it work for everybody.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundin. Margaret Scarsdale?
I believe Dobbs' decision to say that Massachusetts has to be a leader on this issue, and who is representative will be deciding what was unequivocally choice, and I will continue to fight for those values at the State House. For supporting changes, in order to provide safe abortion care in Massachusetts, additional funds must be allocated to the organizations that provide reproductive health care services. I support ensuring adequate funding, especially in light of the advocacy and healthcare services that will be necessary in a post-Roe environment. And I support expanding telehealth services, which helps improve outcomes at small cost and helps regions with lack of access to broadband access have access to safe medical care.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. That ends our quick question portion of the debate. Finally, we will move on to the closing statements. If you have all prepared closing statements, we'll begin with those. We will begin with Andrew Shepard.
Thank you. So I think, as I said earlier, I see it as my role to serve the will and the needs of this district. And I also feel it's critically important that we continue to have balance of thought on Beacon Hill. As a candidate, I believe my experience is working on Beacon Hill with our former state representative and Governor Baker, who just recently endorsed my candidacy, understanding the role of the state rep and knowing how to navigate that state system is critically important. As a business owner, knowing what it's like to have to make payroll and to deal with the crazy inflation and the real pains of this current economy, I think are also critically important. As a farmer, working and caring for the environment and bringing that farmer's work ethic, that sun up to sun down to Beacon Hill, and as a firefighter as well, understanding people in their most vulnerable moments. I think all of those experiences together prepare me well to go down to Beacon Hill with the energy, with the experience, and with the direction to work towards supporting our district as we navigate the challenges that we talked about tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shepard. We'll go on now.
Beacon Hill to help you guys. I sit at home and I look and I just think the two-party system has not served us well. This party wants to give us everything, and she's mentioned it several times throughout her thing, that the way to solve things is for the state to give us something. For me, that is not the way to solve things. I want to go down there and fix our systems to give citizens a pathway for their own success. Basically, for you to live your lives how you want with minimal government intervention. That's where I want to go. Now, Andrew, he says he has a lot of experience, but I bet he doesn't have as much experience as I do in any of the issues that life issues. So I do think I'm qualified. I do work hard. I have a lot of energy. My job is high pressure, as I said, critical thinking, problem solving skills. So, and I don't actually think the job is probably that hard to learn. I could pick it up probably pretty quick, know where to go, know what to do, have a good group around me. So I want to go to Beacon Hill for me, my family, and for you to have successful lives the way you want to have it, not the way a party ideology wants you to live. Either way, both of these are ideological parties, and that's why I'm an independent, and that's why I want to go to the state and just make things work for us.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lundin. Finally, we'll have Margaret Scarsdale.
you again to everyone at the Ashby Library for hosting this, and to everyone who submitted questions, and to my fellow candidates. These past few years have been so challenging for so many in our communities. As chair of the Pepperell Select Board, I saw firsthand seniors struggling to make ends meet, small business owners exhausted trying to keep their doors open, and stressed parents, stressed children, and stressed teachers juggling their new normal. That's not unique. I hear stories like that from voters here in Ashby who face terrible choices about paying their mortgage, subscription, and seniors and veterans who can't afford to live in the community they have called home. Reducing the rising cost of living, protecting our environment, reforming our utilities, ensuring housing affordability, these are going to be challenging fights on Beacon Hill. This community is no stranger to tough fights. When Kinder Morgan threatened to invade the backyards of our neighbors, and we were told by state leaders there was little we could do to stop it, I was among the leaders, including fierce ones in Ashby, who thought otherwise, and together we built a broad bipartisan coalition to stand together in opposition, and we won. There is power when we work together, when we look beyond partisan differences and focus on the needs of our community, and focusing on those needs has been my work for the better part of a decade. I'm a mother, a small business owner, a former middle school teacher. I don't and won't back down from tough fights. It all comes down to this: who we have representing us at the State House matters. Experience matters, advocacy matters, coalition building matters. I know what it takes to get the job done because I've gotten it done, and I know what it takes to advocate for changes that might not come easily because I have done this consistently, steadfastly, and passionately for many years now, including most publicly my work on the Pepperell Select Board. I'm Margaret Scarsdale. I am running to be your state representative so we can bring principled, experienced, transformative leadership to Beacon Hill. I hope you will join me in this work. Please check out margaretscarsdale.com for more information, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Scarsdale. I'd like to thank Andrew Shepard, Kathy Lundeen, and Margaret Scarsdale for being here tonight.
And thank you so much for our candidates. So enthusiastically accepted my on-the-spot invitation for them to do this at the candidate night that they came to a few months ago. And I so appreciate this.